Vet some. Stay in the fight.
Hello, America. Welcome back to VetSum. Brian Lynch here with John Langford. John is the CEO of Project Healing Waters, a military-focused nonprofit in its 20th year. The nonprofit's focus is helping veterans combat PTS. You will find Project Healing Waters in 48 states, including the District of Columbia, with a very large group of 3,500 volunteers. They help on average about 7,000 veterans a year. John is a former Mustang and a Wizzo in the Hornet community, serving 23 years in your United States Marine Corps. John, it's a pleasure to have you on today. We're going to talk PTS. We're going to talk Project Healing Waters and anything else you want to talk about. Thanks for joining us.
I appreciate it, Brian. Good to be on here on a Friday morning and looking forward to having this conversation.
So when you left the Corps, you spent a significant amount of time in a few nonprofits before you took the helm at Project Healing Water. Tell us about your transition from active duty military to the nonprofit world.
Yeah, so like you said, 23 years in, retired in 2009. And for those that don't know, Marines have a bungee cord attached to our waist that either slings us back to Quantico or swings us to the Pentagon. And so I held on tightly to Quantico, so I didn't go to the Pentagon. When I retired, I was actually running what the Marine Corps calls the Semper Fit branch. And as you know, every branch of service has a headquarters component that manages their fitness and their recreation policies. The All Marine Sports Team was there. This was '07 to '09, and so the suicide prevention department essentially was under me, which they quickly realized a couple years later that needs a clinician and that needs
Indeed.
its own standalone. So, but I got involved in, I did defense contracting when I got out because that's what a lot of us do while we're trying to figure out what we want to do post Marine Corps. So my transition was fairly seamless, but I just found myself trying to find ways to fulfill the need to serve. I felt privileged to have the career that I did, and so I worked for TRX, the fitness company, for a couple years as their director of government military sales, and we did a super cool project with Wounded Warrior Project, and I just watched the transformation of maybe 8 or 10 veterans transform physically, and you could see the transformation mentally, and that was really a moment for me when I'm like, I got to get back into service, and what does that mean? So
Right.
2015, I was at the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation, which again, I'm sure you're familiar, but they give scholarships to sons and daughters of Marines and Navy corpsmen who served, because they're obviously a critical part. I spent a couple years at Hope for the Warriors, another national veteran nonprofit. I ran their transition programs, and then the CEO and I created a role for strategic corporate partnerships. I was kind of the old man on campus and could articulate just what the mission about Hope was. But each successive level of leadership and responsibility, I think, led me into where I am now. And I was able to join as the CEO in September of 2022 for Project Healing Waters.
So you're a little over or just shy of 3 years then at the helm.
Correct.
And you guys are headquartered now in Colorado, you were saying?
Yep. So our founder, Ed Nicholson, was a retired Navy captain, Vietnam era surface warfare officer. Quick origin story because it's important, but he was in Walter Reed in 2005. When you think about the time frame there, 4 years of sustained combat now in Iraq and Afghanistan, and lifelong outdoorsman and angler, and he's seeing these kids, literally disabled service members with limb loss, post-traumatic stress, TBI, which traumatic brain injury was. There was such little understood about just the complexities of it back then. But he just asked the administrator there, "Can I just take these kids outside on the grass and teach them how to cast?" And pretty profound moment for us. And here we are in our 20th year. I'm sure Ed didn't think, well, 20 years from now, we'll be in almost, 200 local chapters or programs. But it really, I refer to that moment as our North Star. So Ed is in Charles County, Maryland. So that's where the organization formed and stood up. And that's where I was briefly when I first took over. But I live in northern Colorado. and we moved. We have a great partnership that I'd love to talk a little bit about with the Water Valley Company here locally, but they presented us with an opportunity to have office space on property in Windsor, Colorado. So we're in northern Colorado where there's great fishing, but it's a great place to lead the organization from as well.
I bet. It's a great outdoor environment.
It is.
So this time of year, a little bit challenging for an angler. Are you guys doing ice fishing in the really cold months, or are you just do standard river, lake fishing and that type of thing? Does that change?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, again, we're all across the country. So some places like where you are in Florida, are doing year-round fishing, a lot of saltwater. We're not just a freshwater fishing. Trout is kind of the go-to. But here, my brother, who's a bigger angler than I am, he throws his snowshoes in the car and he'll snowshoe to some really isolated creeks and get a line in the water. So you can do it year round. A lot of what's happening now, actually, we're coming into the spring season, but during the winter months, if there's less access in the northern states, there's a lot of tie flying and rod building and some of the key components of our programming, which I can talk about. But people are anxious to get a line in.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you mentioned, because if you're in 48 states, fishing, anglers around the world have different skill sets. Obviously, there's different gear that you use for anglers. There's a whole different focus. If you're fishing deep water in the Keys out here, or if you're in the flats, or if you're fishing lakes, that's a lot different than tying ties, tying your own flies for freshwater and all that. Do you guys get into, and I know you do, I just wanted to explain it, how do you train people in such a variety of climates when obviously the focus is fishing and the camaraderie and all of that, but what type of training are you giving your staff and the volunteers to help these veterans learn?
Yeah, so I'll back up just a little bit so your listeners can understand. We are not a fly fishing, and it's fly fishing. Fly angling is what we focus on. There's, the other types are great and they're great access, but we just really focus. There's some reasons. That's what Ed Nicholson, our founder, started it with. But there's some precision in the sport, which helps those with traumatic brain injury, et cetera. But so I say often we're not a fly fishing club. We're squarely in the veteran mental health space. We just use the intervention of fly fishing to expose our participants to some opportunities in the outdoors that they might not otherwise have. So a couple things. No experience necessary. First of all, there's no cost to our veteran participants. You mentioned the volunteers. We could not do this without volunteers. We, like most nonprofits, we have a very small staff. We're not all here in Colorado, so we're dispersed across the country, and our staff helps manage the support for the volunteers, and I refer to them always. They are the point of impact of our mission. So all of our local programs have a program lead who's a volunteer, probably an assistant program lead. We have 20 regions across the country. The way we break it up into 4 different sectors, they're all volunteers, and some of them are world-class anglers. And so the instruction happens consistently across all of our programs and they're tying flies with whatever happens to be the appropriate fly for that particular region and season. And, you'll hear anglers talk about matching the hatch. What is the hatch in the river or the lake or wherever they're going to do that so they can replicate the flies. But so I'll go, since I'm on the topic of fly tying, we have 4 core programming components. It's fly tying, rod building. So participants get an opportunity to build their own fly rod, which is a pretty cool project in and of itself. Casting instruction, and then day outings just to go fishing. And then there's great opportunities across the country for some overnight trips. We've got a couple great partnerships for some national destinations and some other national partnerships. And the whole goal is not to catch fish necessarily. And we talked about this before we went live. It is all about the community. Suicide is still the second leading cause of death for veterans 45 and under. really doesn't have much to do with deployment or combat trauma necessarily. It has to do with that guy or gal feeling completely isolated in that moment. And so, what
Indeed.
our whole goal is, I talk about continuity of community. If they can come to a Project Healing Waters meeting minimum twice a month, some meet weekly, and they're like, "Oh man, I'm in week 2 of my rod building. I can't wait. I just met Brian, and he has a similar experience, and I can't wait to go there." So now we're wrapping our participants around with a community that supports them, and they
Right.
find themselves becoming mentors for somebody else. So it's a really cool process to
Yeah.
witness.
John, I've seen the videos. They're on your website. What do you tell us some stories that are probably not on the website about some success for veterans? We hear a lot of different stories from different programs around the country. I know you guys have as well. What stories resonate with you as far as the efficacy of your program?
Yeah, great question. I appreciate that. I'll be honest, when I came into, I'm new to angling still. When I came into the organization, and I had a couple of my staff and some other volunteers go, well, fly fishing and Project Healing Waters saved my life. And I didn't discount the authenticity of the statement, but I thought that, probably helped your life. I was not aware of the depth of the meaning of getting out on the water, and
Yeah.
and you've seen the 20 years of a healing video. Two of our amazing participants, and Sue Curver and Cameron Cushman. Cam's a filmmaker on that and a lot of other content. But as Sue says in that video, unequivocally, fly fishing saved her life. We have a gentleman, another Marine veteran who I got to meet last year, was giving his testimony, so to speak, and he was struggling with substance abuse and, some jail time and some other things, and he got connected to Project Healing Waters, and he's an ambassador like no one else, because he says unequivocally, fly fishing and now Project Healing Waters saved my life. So it's, I mean,
Yeah.
I've talked to people who have, and again, this is not an indictment necessarily, but I think a lot of people, the VA is obviously in the news a lot right now. Many people go to the VA. I know many people who've gotten some tremendous treatment. So again, this is not a broad brush, but I know there has often been some, a lot of it is clinical and therapy, which we don't do. What we offer is a therapeutic outdoor recreation, right? We're not
Right.
clinicians. It's not a clinical thing. And a lot of the clinical component of treatment is medicine and prescriptions. And I know another young Army vet who the medicinal use drove him through some other circumstances to alcohol use and abuse, suicidal ideation, and then someone kind of shook him, and he got into a program and got on the water, stopped with the medication, stopped drinking. I think the battle is still there for a lot of people, but one of the things
Yeah.
that our organization and other great organizations who similarly provide what is called an adjunct intervention. Again, it's not clinical. Man, you can see people really come out of a dark place. And then they want to share that because they know there's others that are struggling just with transition out of the military. You and I talked 15 years, for you, that's a 4 or 24 years. When you hang that uniform up or put it in your plastic wrap for the last time, for a lot of people, it's relief,
Yeah.
For others, it's real uncertainty. And so I think one of the things, again, that tribe, we use the word tribe a lot. I reference Sebastian Junger's book of the same name. We want people to feel they have a tribe in Project Healing Waters, because that's what
Right.
we loved being in the military.
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed. Do you guys partner with? There's a lot. There's quite a few actually. There's a handful that I can think off the top of my head. The CEO for Lone Depot Park has War Heroes on Water. There's another one called Warriors on the Water. They're pretty active on the east coast of Florida in our
Yeah.
region. Do you partner with them? Most of them are excursion based. They're on
Right.
large 80-foot Vikings, and they're out there going on charters, and they bring a ton of veterans out there. Have you guys connected with them?
Yeah, we don't really partner with them just because, as you said, some of the mission execution is so different. For us, a lot of it is wade fishing in a river, fishing in still water lakes and ponds, or getting some pretty epic guided float trips in certain places. But I will say this: the community that we all serve, and you're doing the same thing through VetSum. It's the veteran community. How can we apply the resources and the focus that we have individually as organizations to support the same community? And so we have veterans who have been in those same programs, who then come to Project Healing Waters because a lot of them, as you said, they're either excursion based or they're isolated to a weekend or a week.
Right.
What we want to do is make sure that those are mountaintop experiences, sometimes
Right.
literally. And so
Yeah.
you come home and you're like, man, that was awesome. I met some great brothers and sisters. And about 4 to 6 weeks later, if you're not connected, that mountaintop experience can start to run downhill again.
There's no
And so
continuum. Yeah.
that's exactly
Yeah.
right. And that's why we say continuity of community is really I don't say secret sauce because it's not secret, but that's what matters. And then
Yeah.
we get people on some of these overnight outings. And again, I think all of us who have been in the military have had this experience, but when you're around the campfire, the ring of fire, and you're sharing stories of the day and giving each other crap like we always did in uniform. And yeah, you caught a great tree today, Brian. I don't think I saw your fly in the water. But there's just this bonding that happens, and then you wake up the next morning and off you go again. And so
Yeah.
we try very hard to take those overnight experiences, which really deepen the bonds, and then continue them across all of the programs that we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, I love it. How do your sponsorships look? I mean, when you've got operations in 48 states, fishing is an expensive undertaking.
Sure.
Bass Pro Shops, Cabela's, REI. Are you connected with them? Can we help you connect with them?
Yeah, we're connected with several of those. We've got some local community stores where I am here in Colorado. I think they're in Idaho and the Dakotas. But Shields is a great outdoor store. And we like to say we're one of the biggest fly shops in the country. If you think of all of those programs, about 170, 180, give or take, depending on, again, volunteers available to lead them. We provide free of charge the equipment, free of charge to the participant. There's an expense associated with it, but maybe 10 to 20 rod and reel kits. We've had a great partnership with a couple companies that have, given us significant discounts. But, our donor pipeline, like any other nonprofit, is pretty diverse. We look for some corporate partners that really embrace the mission, and we try to connect with their veteran employee resource groups to, as I say, connect the DNA of our organizations.
Right.
We have some other corporations that, are engaged in the outdoors and want to help fund it, grants, et cetera. So, But like any nonprofit, we're, and I'll make a bold pitch like any CEO of a nonprofit should do when people start to look at our website, projecthealingwaters.org. The ability to donate and invest in the mission is there, and we're grateful for all of that.
So that was my next question, so that we can help you with the fundraising. You're a world-class website. We had that up earlier, and we were talking about it. So if individuals say, because you hit the nail right on the head, when you have a corporate ERG or whatever, a lot of times they like to get involved. Do you permit? I'm thinking Walmart and Publix and a few others that we've worked with frequently. Do you permit them to go out there and interact with the veterans and be a part of the event?
Oh yeah, and we have so Deloitte, the global consulting firm. We have partnered with them here in Colorado locally and starting to work on some things in DC, and they come out and help. We did a river access cleanup project with them because most,
Right.
as you said, that there's a corporate social responsibility aspect for a lot of
Right.
companies, even mandated that their staff volunteer in some capacity. So we look for those opportunities as well. so that they can come out and be part of it. Or the really cool part is when the veterans that are the employees at Lockheed Martin, which
Right.
I met one of their executives at a suicide prevention conference in San Antonio last week, but 1 in 5 of their employees at Lockheed Martin are veterans, which makes
Right.
sense. If there are some who've never heard of Project Healing Waters and they learn about us through I'm doing a couple corporate pitches to companies. My first and foremost thing is I want their veterans to come be participants if that's something they would like to be, if that's going to help them on their healing journey, if they
Yeah.
want to volunteer. And then, of course, if there's opportunities from a corporate, funding standpoint, I'll
Right.
never turn those down.
Yeah. No, it's great because it's great when you get two birds with one stone there, because you can get volunteers, even if they're not veterans, but they're experiencing the program, they're watching it, they're seeing firsthand the efficacy of what you're doing, and then you've got financial support as well, which really
Yeah.
strengthens your relationship with that group, because it's fundraising, as we know, never stops.
Yeah,
It's an everyday thing.
And I'll
So,
say something real quick that you just brought up, and I'm glad you did because this is important. I don't know the numbers of how many of our volunteers are not veterans, but a significant number of them are civilians.
right.
This is their opportunity, from many of them very humbly serving. And I've had so many veterans who say this benefits me more than it does the participants, which is a beautiful sentiment.
Right.
And I would say the participants would go, no, man, it's not. It helps me. And it's just a cool thing that the relationship that this whole healing journey, and that's what we refer to, is the healing journey that our participants are on. I guarantee our volunteers who had no intention other than, I've been, an angler my whole life. I love to teach how to tie flies and cast and all that other stuff. They find out they're on a healing journey too, and it's a
Yeah.
pretty cool thing to see.
Well, you're right, and I've seen it as well with myriad organizations. And the healing, John, when you think about it, it's a human condition. Veterans don't have a monopoly on the stress and pain. It's
Yeah.
something that I think
Great
that
point.
anybody that is fortunate enough to be in an environment with individuals working towards their recovery on that journey, anybody that's involved in that is going to benefit.
Yeah, great
And
point.
of course, the organization will as well. And I'm sure you've probably been able to secure volunteers for the following event, the next year, whatever the case may be, just by being out there with your crew for the day. So 48 states, how do we get you in Louisiana and Hawaii? What's the problem? Who do I need to call?
Yeah, let's ring the
Because
bell.
the fishing is good
It is
in Hawaii. I don't
Yeah.
know about Louisiana. I haven't
It's
fished
tremendous.
at all down there, but they got
It's
the Gulf.
tremendous.
There's good fishing out there.
Yeah, there's great fishing. So we have our operations team, which all of the programs and programming falls under them. I've got just a tremendous, really varsity staff that I'm so proud to call colleagues, and they're working hard to make sure, that it's not like, we're not in Louisiana. It's, oh my gosh, there's so many veterans in Louisiana that we need to connect with and help get on a healing journey. So there's really a drive. It's resource based, and in many cases, obviously, it starts with the volunteers. What's it take to start a program? You need
Right.
people. You need a place. You need the policies that we provide. So we're working hard on getting that done.
John, do you guys work at all with the active duty community? I know there's a lot of military installations around the country that are near water and have
Yeah.
plenty of water with them. Do you have active chapters that work with active duty?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're open to active duty, Guard, Reserve, veterans. One of the places, go back to Walter Reed and the origin story, with Ed Nicholson, our founder, who just, again, 2005, 4 years of sustained combat and took these kids with limb loss and traumatic brain injury and everything else and said, can I just take them outside and teach them how to cast?
Right.
So that's our North Star. But so we did a lot of our programming in the VA, both inpatient and outpatient, and that still continues. We have partnerships and connections with a lot of the warrior transition units in the Army. We're in both Wounded Warrior battalions, East and West, with the Marine Corps. So
Good.
we want to meet people where they are and serve them, where their needs are. So.
What about from an adaptive standpoint? I'm sure you got a taste of that at Walter Reed. We have, I'm excited to announce in a future episode, we will have 8 members of the sled hockey team, all Marines, ironically, that are going to, I don't know if we can have 8 guests on at once, but we'll figure it out. But had a discussion with a couple of them about the adaptation and the necessity for equipment and all that. How do you work the adaptation piece in fishing?
Yeah, so there's some great companies that, you think of a veteran with a loss of an arm. And so depending on how the prosthetic is, they'll be able to hold the rod in their hand. They can manipulate the reel. I've seen people literally, as they strip the line and fly fishing, using their teeth. We have people in track chairs, so we're providing access right to the river with track chair and some other things. And some of the guide boats, the drift boats, have been configured to allow a wheelchair to go on there, and some adaptive seating components as well. I think, and again, if there's a need, we're going to try to find a way to meet it. So if someone comes to us with an adaptive need that we can't meet yet, we'll work hard to make that happen. So,
good.
And I will say it's a critical. You just mentioned sled hockey. I grew up in Michigan, and so hockey was my sport. Still love it, and I had an opportunity. In Northern Virginia, they had a sled hockey tournament at the local rink where my kids played and coached, and I played adult hockey. And I was out by then. I was doing nonprofit work, and so I got to know some of them. And I asked if I could, not for any reason other than just to understand how hard it is to sit in a sled and the arm movement and everything. And man, I love watching those games. That's pure athletes for sure. So
they are. And
awesome.
not a lot of them, which I found interesting, not a lot of them hockey players.
Right.
Because it's almost a totally different sport. It's, like you said, it's all upper body and arm strength. So, John, what else can we do to help Project Healing Waters succeed?
I think if you just want to point people to our website, projecthealingwaters.org, and you mentioned the website, we have a tremendous partnership with a company called Elva Creative, who tremendous philanthropic effort, help put that website together. Compose is our company that does the back end. It's, for us, we have an office here in Windsor, but and this, our websites are really our brick and mortar. So being able to track people in, have links. If they want to participate, they can click on the link to find locations. There's opportunities to send emails if they want to volunteer, et cetera. So all of our information is at projecthealingwaters.org.
And it's a first-class website, I might add.
Thank you.
People. So 5-star rating in Charity Navigator, platinum transparency with Candid, which is not easy to get. You got the VA on there. I'm assuming you have an MOU or two active with the VA as well.
Yeah.
The EIN is on there all well. So it's projecthealingwaters.org for those that are listening, and we'll post that on the URL. John, it's been a pleasure to have you on today. We're very proud of what you're doing with Project Healing Waters, and we appreciate the effort you're putting forward with our veterans to help them stay in the fight.
Appreciate being in the fight with you, Brian. Semper Fi.
Amen. John, thanks again. We'll see y'all next time on VetSum.
Thank you.